The episode starts out just like the book, with Poe dropping the kids off at 667 Dark Avenue. Now, the design of the Dark Avenue, I think, is very well done. It's just as its description in the book. Full, like a very dark street because the trees are so big that they block out any light. And I think the show really did a good job on that. And also, it really got the style of the actual apartments right. Like with the candles and with the leathers and stuff like that. Just how everything was like made and created, and how everything was just designed inside and outside the penthouse was absolutely great. Mr. Poe drops the kids off, and they are greeted by the doorman. Now, in the book, I absolutely loved the doorman. He had good humor, and he was pretty nice for me, because I really liked him there. However, it did turn out by the end of the book that the doorman was actually the hook, like the man of with the hook hands from Olaf's gang. And this was shocking to me because I came to like that guy so much, and the reveal was very well done, I think. But in this show, they changed it a bit so that the doorman starts out by being a normal guy. However, he is later replaced with Olaf's henchman in the next episode. And I liked this change kind of, but I don't know. Because I did find the hand hooked man from the show to be not really as charismatic as the someone I could imagine being the doorman could have been. And I think the man that they chose to be the doorman before the hookhead man was actually a very charismatic man, just as I imagined. So I'm fine with this change. Then we of course have the how do you say it, the candles, because the entire basically their new guardians, Jerome and Esme Squirrel, and everyone on the street are like dividing things on in and out, in being what is in trend, like, and out being what is not in trend, and that is like out of trend. And that's why the elevator is out, and Violet is like, I can fix it if the elevator is like out of order, but it turns out the elevator is working, but it's out, so it's not allowed. So they have to go on these stairs. And the thing is, in the book, it was really exhausting to read about. Just how Daniel Handler describes them going up, and how they begin to be so tired, walking through all those floors, being so exhausted, walking. In the show, I really felt like they really didn't give as much like of a feel for how tiring it was for the Baudelaires. It's only like 1 minute with Lemony Snicket narrating, and maybe it's good because it kind of moves the plot more forward rather than being stuck on the stairs, which was like very tiresome to read because it went like throughout more than a chapter and a half. But it's still not, should have been more like focused on how exhausting it was for the Baudelaires. Then after that, we of course have the introduction of Jerome Squirrel, their first guardian, like the new guardian. And I always had this, like, in my mind, Jerome was always this really nice guy. Like, you always trust him because he is trustworthy, and he's just so nice in the actual book that sometimes he's just too nice and gets sometimes manipulated. And although I think the show did a pretty good job on that, the actor who played him as I said in my trailer review, seemed a bit like he was untrustworthy. Don't get me wrong, he did a very good job. He was very nice. However, there was still this slight feeling I got that maybe he isn't as trustworthy as I could hope for, which I completely did not get in the book Jerome. Maybe it's just me, but then of course we have the perfect casting of Esme Squirrel, Jerome's sort of evil wife. She just she was done very well. Just all her lines, everything. The actress nailed it. Like 100%. She's like exactly like the book Esme Squirrel. Her line, everything. Then of course, after that, Klaus, Violet, and Sunny, they basically, because light is now in and dark is now out, they quickly go to sort of open the window blinds, and then we have Olaf. And this really surprised me because in the book, Olaf only appeared like throughout half the book. He didn't appear immediately like he did in the show. And here it's just way too quick, I think, but it kind of does make you in an unexpected moment, and I really liked this reveal how he was standing behind the curtains. Because of course later we find out that Esme is working with Olaf, and of course the thing is that in the book she only brought Olaf to them like in the half of the book where in the middle of the book where he comes in disguised as an auctioneer called Gunter who needs to help Esme with her auction, the inn auction. However, here he just appears immediately, talks to the Baudelaires about stuff, and then he starts pretending to be the Gunther man, and once again Neil Patrick Harris steals the show. But this is one of the few times where just his accent and how he speaks really annoyed me. But he was still great, don't get me wrong. And after that, we have the scene of basically showing how big the apartment is, the penthouse. But I have to say, in the book, it was much bigger. Like, whenever I read in the book, I had the impression like the penthouse was like an enormous house. I was like, how? Like, how is this enormous house part of the apartment? Because it was describing so much, like everyone was forgetting where they brushed their teeth. There was the sitting room, the standing room, the lying room, the sleeping room, stuff like that. And it really, really gave this feel that the house was very big, bigger than in the show. Then there is an assassination attempt on Jerome after Olaf basically takes his cane and tries to sort of cut the chandelier so that it breaks Jerome's skull when it falls. However, Klaus saves him. And then I love how when Jerome and Esme are kind of gone, Klaus and Olaf have this like between themselves this interaction, and I absolutely love how at this moment Olaf is speaking openly as Olaf with Klaus because they know, like and after that they decide basically. I didn't speak much about the side plot of the VFD because it honestly always feels like the last thing I should mention. But Olivia Caliban, aka the teacher from the Ulster Academy, goes to Mr. Poe to say that it's like the Baudelaires shouldn't live there. But Mr. Poe doesn't care, so the secretary of Mr. Poe, who is she's called Jacqueline, and she of course is also a member of the VFD that we saw in the season 1. The secretary notices that Olivia has the book, the Incomplete History of Secret Organizations, and she calls Jack Snicket, Lemony Snicket's brother, to basically collect Olivia so that she becomes a member of the VFD.